Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum, Husna Khan.
Alaikum assalam.
We are going to learn one concept and one concept only today, and that is a complicated ismul ishara and musharun ilayh. Last time when I talked to you about mawsuf and sifa, and when the mudaf has a sifa, it has to go all the way at the end. You remember that? And it has to match up at the end.
Yeah.
So that was a complicated mawsuf, sifa, and mudaf ilayh together. Today we're going to do a complicated mudaf ilayh and an ismul ishara musharun ilayh together. So I first want to help you understand the problem and why it's complicated. Okay, if I say this book, this is a fragment, right? Hadha al-kitab. That's easy enough, right? Let me just change the font quickly so it's nice and big. Okay, what is the al doing there? It's keeping us from writing this is a book. Okay, because if I did say hadha kitabun, then what would that translate into? This is a book, right? So it's the fact that there's no al there that's making it into a sentence. So you have to, first of all, for this exercise, you have to be really clear about the difference between a sentence and a fragment. This book is clearly a fragment. This is a book is clearly a sentence. Now, if I say this book of mine, is that a sentence or a fragment?
Fragment
It's a fragment. This book of mine is new.
is a sentence.
Or if I said, this is my book.
Then that would be a sentence.
Okay, now, in Arabic we say hadha kitabi. Yes? Which is three words. It's hadha, kitab, and e. And kitabi is a mudaf ilayh, you already know that.
Yeah.
Right? Now, currently, is there an al right after?
No.
No, which makes this a sentence.
Sentence
So the translation hadha kitabi would be what? This is
is my book.
my book, right? The complication is, sometimes I don't want to say this is my book. I want to say this book of mine. This book
Okay.
of mine. That's what I want to say. But that's tricky because if I want to have this part, the this book part,
Okay.
then there has to be an al on kitab, right? But I can't put an al on kitab because kitab itself is a mudaf.
Mudaf.
So it's like this part wants me to put an al, and this part says you can't have an al.
Okay.
You get it? That's the complication. And obviously they don't want to break the rule of allowing you to put an al on a mudaf.
Yeah.
That's really bad for them. So their solution to this problem is, if you do want to say this book of mine, then you just simply say kitabi hadha.
Yeah.
In other words, you take the ismul ishara and you push it all the way to the end. The only time, therefore, this is the thing to remember, the only time you push the ismul ishara to the end is when you want to make a fragment with the mudaf. Like, it's only with the mudaf that you do this. And this is never going to be a sentence, really. This is really going to be a fragment. This book of mine. Quran uses وَيَأْتُكُم مِّن فَوْرِكُمْ هَذَا, and a couple other examples. You know, if they attack you, if they come at this moment of yours. This moment of yours. Right? So the moment of yours is a mudaf ilayh, but this had to go at the end. So فَوْرِكُمْ هَذَا. Okay? So this is the tricky part. Now we're going to do a couple of exercises of that, and then inshallah I'll leave it, and in our next session we'll do lots of practice of it. Okay? So if I say this, this or these books of the teacher. These books of the teacher. It's obviously a fragment. It's not a sentence. And this fragment is made up of an idafa. Where's the idafa here?
Books of the teacher.
Yeah, books is kutub. Kutubul ustadi.
Kutubul Ustad Haulai.
Well, kutub is a non-human,
Oh.
broken plural.
So.
When you point at a non-human,
Hadihi.
that's right.
Okay.
But so the issue is kutubu al-ustadi. These are the two we want to compare. Kutubul ustadi hadihi and hadihi kutubul ustadi. When I say hadihi kutubul ustadi, it's actually pretty clear. Kutub is a mudaf, al-ustad is mudaf ilayh, which means books of the teacher. Hadihi is a pointer. It's not followed by al, which means you're going to put is or are, whatever fits.
Okay.
So hadihi kutubul ustadi, this bottom line, how would you translate that?
So these are the books of the teacher.
These are the books of the teacher. Okay. In this case, I had to put هذه at the end. Whenever you see a pointer at the end, what does that mean? Who is it pointing at?
The mudaf.
The mudaf. The mudaf. Okay. So how do we, and is it creating a sentence or a fragment?
Fragment.
Like the only purpose of doing this weird thing was so you get to keep a fragment.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't translate this with an is. So then how do you translate this?
The books of the teacher.
No, you didn't translate هذه.
Oh, these books of the teacher.
These books of the teacher. Okay? So this is the only time you do that. Now, what about if I said, be careful now.
Books of this teacher.
We've solved one kind of problem. That problem was when your pointer is pointing at the mudaf.
Mm-hmm.
This is a separate problem. What is this problem? When your pointer is pointing at,
The mudaf.
it looks like that, right?
Yeah.
In this case, this is how I want you to think. I want you to think that the mudaf ilayh here is the books of this.
Okay.
That's your mudaf ilayh.
Okay.
What's the mudaf ilayh? The books of this. And then this teacher is another fragment.
Okay.
It's an ismul ishara and a musharun ilayh. So it's actually not something complicated. The only complicated one is when the pointer is pointing at the mudaf.
Okay.
When the pointer is pointing at what it looks like the mudaf ilayh, it's actually the pointer itself is the mudaf ilayh.
Okay.
The pointer itself is the mudaf ilayh. Okay, so let's try to translate this. Books is what again?
Kutub.
Kutu.
Kutubu.
Good.
Of this teacher.
So this, just this is your mudaf. The word this.
So hada.
Yes. And how do we know it's jar? Because you want to make it jar because it's a mudaf ilayh, right?
Because hada is non-flexible.
That's not flexible, so
It could be.
it could be, so it is. Okay. Now, how do you make a fragment this teacher?
هذا المعلم.
Okay,
Or
هذا المعلم is fine.
Ustad.
هذا المعلم. Now the question is, what do we do with معلم? We just,
معلمي.
very good answer, but why?
Because
Think. Yesterday's notes.
because this teacher.
Let me start you off.
So,
The four properties
so the four properties of the pointer
of the, use Arabic.
or of the ismul ishara
Mhm.
isharan ilay have to match.
Yes.
And
So-
because hada is jar because it's a mudaf ilay, so muallim is jar because hada.
Explain to me why muallim has al on it.
Because it's a fragment.
Yes, because it's a mushar ilayh.
Mm-hmm.
You need al on it. Okay. What if I put hada at the end?
And it would be the books.
It would actually be wrong because hada couldn't point at the books. And you don't need to move the arrangement like a weird arrangement for no reason.
Yeah.
Like the only time you have to move is when it was impossible to use the normal arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time you do that. So you only really move it when you are pointing at a mudaf.
Mudaf,
Okay? So the point of this example was to illustrate that actually when your mudaf ilayh has this or that or those or these, and that's not an unusual case. That just means solve the first problem, then solve the second problem, and you're done.
Okay.
Okay? So that's the little bit that I wanted to teach you. Inshallah, in our next session we'll do some exercises. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Good job, chicken. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.